Hey, beautiful people. So, following on from last week's video where I was sharing a dream and kind of asking this really deep question around when is a dream just a dream? And I shared my experience of a partial reoccurring dream where I end up walking down this side street that I've dreamt of several times, and each time I have, it's been profound because I kind of turn off this street into this building, and quite often there's so much messaging that's shared within the dream. It's almost like I've now pieced together that when I see that familiar side street and I step into this building, um, that I know that there's going to be a profound message woven into the experience, woven into the dream. Now, I don't know if any of you unpack the anagram, so do go and check out that video from last week. Don't know if any of you unpack the anagram of Hatty Lorelei, but it took me a long time to understand, because working with the principle that they have always taught me that all information's information. So Hattie I remembered very clearly, and it took me a while to kind of piece together the last part of the name, and then I was like, what is that? Who is she? Hatty Lorelei. And it was on a top of a hotel, so it was this sign in neon lights on this hotel. And then I realised, was it potentially an anagram? Then it took me ages to realise what was within the messaging within that, and it was an anagram, and it actually was hotel reality. So now when I think about seeing that side street, several dreams now turning into this building, which turns out to be Hatty Lorelei hotel reality, that I'm being shown important pieces of information. It is absolutely mind-blowing when you think about it. So last week I shared within that dream that I went in through this side street, through a service entrance into hotel reality, Hatty Lorelei, and I found myself at the reception desk asking for floor 13, room 13, and was told under there was no doubt in this receptionist that he stood there and told me, how ridiculous, there is no floor 13 and there is no room 13, and even if there was, it would be out of bounds, prohibited, you would not be able to access it. And then suddenly I see this girl go past, out the corner of my eye, interestingly, so I need to pay attention to that actually piece of information. Out the corner of my eye, see this girl wearing a t-shirt with a star on it, the word star, and then as the R went round, there was this shooting star that come off it. And another really important piece of information was that she had all these stars tattooed on her wrist, and I was trying to understand, because I felt that there was going to be a significant number there, either 8, 9 or 13. And then it was almost like this feeling of one to skip a few, and there we were on the 13th floor, because she whispered to me, follow me, and then suddenly one to skip a few, there we were on the 13th floor, outside room 13, and she told me, she pointed and said, you're holding the key, you are carrying the key. And then I, over this last week, have taken a really huge deep dive into the number 13, because it isn't random. Right? It isn't random. I've always felt drawn to it, understood aspects of it, always felt it was a key, a sense of an energy that creates change. Those that feel drawn to it, when I look at everybody I know that has this infinity with 13, number 13, they are change makers. So for me, the number 13, it is not random that we've been taught it's unlucky, and it certainly is not unlucky, despite everything we've been taught. That idea, in fact, that fear, unlucky 13, that fear that feels placed there does feel like it is by design. And then you start to notice how often 13 is missing. Buildings without a 13th floor, and that's what that part of the dream was. It was almost like the authority, the patriarchy showing that up on the reception desk, telling me under no doubt, on no circumstances, there is no 13th floor, and there is no room 13, and even if there was, it would be out of bounds, it would be prohibited. So that was that playing out. So you start to notice where 13 is missing. Buildings without a 13th floor, planes without a row 13, hospitals often skipping room 13, and we are surrounded by 12s, okay? 12 months, 12 hours, 12 zodiac signs, and 12 disciples. But get this, something doesn't add up. Okay, really doesn't add up, and I'll tell you why. Because the clue is within nature. The moon cycles the earth roughly 13 times a year. Okay, so the moon cycles the earth 13 times a year. There's a clue to the truth. The divine feminine, she moves in rhythms that often mirror those cycles as well. You know, how many women are attuned to their menstrual cycle around the full moon, okay? So 13 cycles there, 13 cycles of the earth, the moon cycling the earth. And in the sky, beyond the familiar 12 zodiac constellations, like I say, I've taken a deep dive, sits a 13th. Okay, so beyond the familiar 12 constellation sits a 13, and it is known as the serpent bearer. Okay, so another symbol that I've had for some time, unconsciously maybe, always, well, there's a medicine story to this serpent snake for me, but there's layers. Okay, so beyond the familiar 12 is the 13th, known as the serpent bearer, often left out of the story, yet still present in the heavens. Okay, we always talk about the 12 apostles, yet Mary Magdalene was the 13th, and I absolutely feel that actually she was a mystic and a teacher, so she was the 13th. That to me speaks volumes, because often I feel people that carry that energy, 13, carry that energy, is they are change makers. Something that come through within our last evening of connection, messages from beyond, was I was really curious as I started to unpack this, who was sitting in chair 13 and who had booked ticket number 13. I'm going to really pay attention to that going forwards. So, you know, for me, Mary Magdalene, she was the 13th. She was the feminine and a true teacher, and yet she was completely erased in more ways than one. So what we are taught, we're taught to reject the key. To erase 13 actually is to erase the path into natural time. Now that was the other thing within the dream. This girl wearing this star t-shirt, she had a pocket watch on a chain tucked into her back pocket. There was a pointing towards natural time. Okay, so to erase 13 is to erase the pathway into natural time. The very key that brings us into balance and harmony. Even within sacred geometry, there's something known as the fruit of life that is formed from 13 circles, which is a foundational pattern from which many more complex structures like the Metatron's cube emerges from, and that is a blueprint of balance of those interwoven forces, often described as the masculine and feminine and harmony. And you think we've been ripped away from that, then we've been divided. There's so much of that going on. We've been there's been this severance that's gone on. And even within the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern woven through nature itself, spirals, and the Fibonacci sequence, 13 is an absolute layer within the unfolding code of growth and proportion, which is another aspect of the Fibonacci. It's all around growth and proportion. So 13 is there. So what happens when 13 is removed? Something subtle but significant is displaced. A rhythm becomes interrupted, a key set aside, because 13 speaks of cycles, to ebb and flow, renewal to the quiet intelligence of natural time. The rhythms of the moon, the body, the seasons, the earth itself. So to move away from that is to move very deeply but subtly out of sync. Like, you just know that something isn't quite adding up, as if something is missing, but yet you can't place your finger on it. It's like you just know something's not quite adding up. So, as always, sending you all so much love. Keep shining.